Hello, AP Language, estudiantes, ¿cómo están? Bienvenidos a The AP Language Exam Advice for Students número 2. Hoy vamos a hablar del tema de la comparación cultural. Mi nombre es el señor Ojeda. And I'm a Spanish teacher in Louisville, Kentucky. So let's talk about comparación cultural. Some of your teachers have told me that sometimes we are a little confused. We're a little confused about the organization of the comparación cultural. So we're going to talk about the different parts, and we're going to talk about different strategies to try to have a very good comparación cultural. ¿Listos? Sí se puede. Ok, vamos a empezar. Let's get this started. Ok, so in order to understand the section of comparación cultural, or the task of comparación cultural, it's very important that we know or understand what culture is. Entonces, ¿qué es cultura? ¿Sí? So we talk about culture when we talk about tradiciones, when we talk about comunidad, and when we talk about comunidad, we refer to a group of people. Una comunidad can be as small as a family, that's a community, or as big as a country. So that's a community as well. And most important, we talk about identidad, identity, meaning that these people in these specific communities, they have many things in common that identify them as part of that group. And when that happens, then people understand mostly each other within that community. So when we talk about comparación cultural, we are talking pretty much about if we compare two groups of people in general. So culture, la cultura, is not something very subjective. La cultura es la gente. Entonces, siempre piensa, when you are going to do the cultural comparison, siempre piensa en las personas. Always think about the people. I'll give you an example. When we start taking Spanish classes, Spanish 1, Spanish 2, we start learning about how people in different countries do things. And you probably have heard about how people in a specific country celebrates Christmas, which is not the same as how people celebrate Christmas in your community, probably. And chances are that you are in the United States. So like, for example, we learned that in Colombia, for Christmas, the most important figure for Christmas is El Niño Dios, baby Jesus, where in the United States is Santa Claus, which has a different name in Spanish, which is Papa Noel. Noel in French means Christmas, Navidad. So Navidad, Spanish, Noel, French, Christmas, English. So in Spanish, we say Papa Noel. So there's kind of like a mix of cultures there, you know? But anyway, Papa Noel, to me, Papa Noel, who's Papa Noel? So if they ask me when I was little, does Papa Noel or Santa Claus exist? I would say, who? Who's that? Because I was always waiting for little Jesus, El Niño Dios. So it's not a subjective topic. is how people relate to different aspects of their life. That is culture. And that is what we're going to be comparing. ¿Ok? Tradiciones, comunidad, identidad. Ok. Ahora, en términos muy específicos, antes eran términos muy generales, ahora en términos muy específicos. Then we talk about specific things. We think about different aspects. La ropa, clothing, cómo es diferente la ropa en tu comunidad a una comunidad en el mundo hispano. Las fiestas, cómo celebramos fiestas diferentes a la Navidad, por ejemplo. En los Estados Unidos está el día de San Valentín. San Valentine's es dulce, candy, 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 candy. En Colombia, I'm from Colombia. You see the flag here? No, here, yeah. In Colombia, we don't celebrate Valentine's, but we have Día de Amor y Amistad. And that's in September. Yeah, chocolate is important, pero it's more like about inviting people to eat and things like that. Yeah, I mean, you don't see the amount of candy that you see in the United States. Y comida, ¿sí? ¿Cuál es la comida más tradicional en los Estados Unidos versus cuál es la comida más tradicional en el mundo hispano? Now, I need to tell you that it's very important that you need to try to avoid stereotyping. Listen, not every Hispanic person in the world loves tacos, guacamole, enchiladas, and chimichurri. Okay? That is one part of the Hispanic community. And to be honest with you, I think that's more popular in the United States than in many other countries. I came to this country when I was, I'm not going to say the age, but 23 years ago. And never in my life I had at that point eaten so much Mexican food than when I, start living in the United States. Meaning in Colombia, Mexican food, well, you can go to a Mexican restaurant, but it's not as common as here. I mean, just in Louisville, you see a Mexican restaurant everywhere. So that doesn't mean that every Hispanic person eats the same thing. Colombian food is quite different from Mexican food. And sometimes we try to generalize and we think that every Hispanic eats the same thing, acts the same way, has the same experiences just because they're Hispanic. You gotta be careful with that because that's not the reality. And an activity like cultural comparison is actually looking for, knowing if you know what you're saying about the country that you're referring to. Okay, let's keep going. All right, otro tema más específico ahí, la Navidad. Comparación cultural. So we're gonna compare tu comunidad, meaning the group of people you belong to. So you can think about your family, you can think about your town, you can think about your state, because states in the United States are quite different one to the other. Or you can think about your country. So when you start your comparison, you're gonna say, en mi familia, o en mi comunidad de Ojedaville en Illinois, o en mi estado de Illinois, o en los Estados Unidos, we tend to think that the comparación cultural is always about the Estados Unidos, but no, you can refer to a specific community. And then you're gonna refer to a comunidad en el mundo hispano. But be careful, because a comunidad in the mundo hispano is not necessarily either a country. You can refer to a state in the United States with high Hispanic influence. California, Texas, New Mexico, Illinois. See? If you have seen pockets of Hispanic community, or you know that there are pockets of Hispanic community in these states, and that influences the way they are, their identity, then you can compare that. Now, if you belong to a Hispanic community that lives in the United States, then chances are that in your neighborhood, let's say your family is from Mexico, but you also have people from Colombia, El Salvador, Venezuela. You have seen people from other places in the Hispanic world. You can still compare your family, your Mexican culture, with that culture of those neighbors that you have observed that belong to other places in the Hispanic world. See? So it's not always comparing country to country. Okay? All right, here we go. So next, this is a clarification note from College Board that says the term community can refer to something as large as a continent or as small as a family unit. The phrase target culture can refer to any community, large or small, associated with the target language. Okay, so these are just fancy words: community, target, culture. We're talking about people, the people we're going to talk about, that's all. Okay, now, what are we going to compare? We can compare things, cosas, specific things. We can compare practice, meaning the way people do things. And we can compare perspectives, meaning the idea that people has about something. So check that out. We're talking about, we can compare. You don't have to compare all of them. Is my tie okay? Yeah, okay. You don't have to compare all of them, but choose one. Okay, I do remember that people in Uruguay, they don't drink much juice during their supper. They drink soda, a lot of soda. Where in my community, we drink milk or juice or sometimes water. Ok, estás comparando una cosa, ¿sí? Prácticas, la comida. So you're gonna compare what kind of food, for example, is most common in the United States. So you need to talk about fast food because that's very common here, versus how fast food is not that common in many Hispanic countries. To my nephews, it's still a treat to go to McDonald's probably once a month. Not because it's fancy or expensive, just because it's part of the American culture. But what I'm trying to say is that it's not a place that they go every day to eat something, okay? Or perspective, what is the meaning of vacation to the people in your community and to the people in the Hispanic world? It can be like for your community, vacation is a time to try to go and visit other countries, where for people in Latin America, it's a time to go and visit family in other cities. So you choose, depending on the topic that College Board is giving you, productos, prácticas, o perspectivas, okay? That's what you're going to be comparing. All right, now, in order to become better at doing this cultural presentation, my advice is that you and your teachers start doing small presentations during class, just 2-minute presentations on any topic. Presentations that are easy to understand to your classmates. Do not do presentations where you memorize stuff that no one is understanding what you're saying. That doesn't make any sense. That can give you an A because the teacher is impressed, wow. But in reality, it's not benefiting you, it's not benefiting the others because you just memorize things. So make it easy to understand. Now, try to use a vocabulary that is gonna help you raise your level of vocabulary in Spanish. That's very important, that you start adding new words here and there, because the College Board people are going to be looking for that. If they listen to your cultural comparison and they think that you're using basic vocabulary, they're not going to give you the 5. Some are going to give you the 3, some are going to give you the 4 if you have a good presentation. But they do want you to use some vocabulary that shows that you're at a higher level. There's a way to deal with that, okay? And now, gramática. In your cultural presentation, it's very important that you have clear the use of the presente perfecto. See, because you're going to be giving examples of yourself. Like, for example, en mi comunidad, yo he celebrado la Navidad de esta forma. So you're using the present perfect. See? Todos esos tiempos compuestos, all those compound tenses, son muy importantes, pero el presente perfecto es súper importante para la comparación cultural. Now, the AP reader is going to be looking for you to use compound tenses, specifically the presente perfecto, and the subjunctive. Try to insert the subjunctive somewhere. For example, en mi comunidad es importante que comas en los restaurantes italianos. ¿Sí? Use subjunctive and presente perfecto. You should be fine with that grammar part because that just shows that you know a little bit of more ways to express yourself. Okay, almost to finish here. El registro formal, okay? Meaning that we're gonna be using the usted form. We're not addressing, but we're addressing the public. Es un registro formal in general. Pay attention to your pronunciation, intonation, and the fluidity of the presentation. Intonation, that's very important because that's what makes the presentation interesting. If you use a monotone and oh my gosh, the AP reader will be falling asleep after 30 seconds of your presentation. Make it interesting, like you were presenting to people that you want to convince and that you want to inform that you are enjoying what you're doing. Okay. If you make mistakes, self-correct yourself. No one is going to take points off for that. If you make a mistake and then you make the correction, you said it the right way, then it's like you never made a mistake. Okay. All right. So I had an example here of a very simple presentation that one of my students did to practice for the cultural comparison. This is not a presentation on a cultural comparison. The idea with these presentations were for the student to feel confident presenting, and that's the first step. You need to find opportunities to feel confident presenting first, and then take care of the cultural presentation. Let's watch a little bit.
Me llamo William y este es mi gereo. Se llama William Michiru el primero. Soy el tercero. Esta historia es de mi abuelo. Nunca conocí a mi abuelo, pero escuchó muchas historias de él. Mi abuelo era amable. Escuchó que tenía una gran sonrisa. Pero también mi abuelo era serio porque trabajó en un banco y es generoso. Donó mucho dinero a las organizaciones.
See, this presentation was 1 minute and 51 seconds. I told them you can use words here on the slide, but you need to give me more information. So if you have here amable, why was he amable? Serio, why was he serio? Without having to read anywhere. So these little short presentations really help my students gaining confidence for the cultural comparison in the
Me
AP
llamo
exam.
William y este es mi
Okay,
gereo.
let's keep moving here. All right, so ¿cómo comparar? So we analyze the question and we think about how we can compare. You compare when you find things that are common and you compare when you find things that are uncommon. So you need to decide what you're gonna focus on. Obviously, in a comparación cultural, you need to talk more about the differences just because that's what they want. You know, obviously, if they are asking you to compare your community to a Hispanic countries to show that you know about the Hispanic country and chances are, or community, and chances are that they do things in a different way. So contrastar, okay? I will make this more like el contraste cultural instead of like comparación cultural. Now, aspectos culturales importantes, chicos. Entonces, remember, read the directions. The directions are very important, so you have a context. You start thinking what are you going to say the moment you read your directions. So don't skip the directions. They are very important, okay? All right, so we talked about these things before, and I'm gonna show with you an example of the kind of information that we want to get about a country. You can go to the internet and find facts about a country, but that's not going to help with the comparación cultural. So just skip that part, okay? Get into the things that are related to the daily life of people. Like, for example, las fiestas. In Colombia, we don't say fiestas, we say las rumbas. And we love las rumbas. Y la gente joven ama las rumbas. So you find out about how are they different. Las fiestas en los Estados Unidos, where everyone is just talking, versus las rumbas en Colombia, donde la gente baila. ¿Sí? Oh, el café o el tinto. En los Estados Unidos, you drink coffee, but people drink a lot of coffee. That is because it's not as concentrated as the tinto. The tinto in Colombia is very small cup of coffee, but very strong. It's like an espresso. ¿Sí? Comidas, una arepa, comida tradicional, la vivienda, las fincas, la religión, las artesanías. ¿Y qué puedes ver en las artesanías? This is a PowerPoint that I share with my students about Colombia, and a very focused on cultural practices, not just on information. So sometimes we think that it's just that we have to memorize a bunch of information about the Hispanic countries so we can perform well here. No, it's more about finding what people do on a regular basis on their daily existence. Okay, so importante, partes de la comparación cultural. So there's a prompt, you read the prompt, ¿cuál es la importancia de las reglas en la familia? So family rules, so how are different in the United States than in the Hispanic countries? For example, in the United States, not everyone has to eat dinner together. In the Hispanic countries, especially in Colombia, everyone has to be there for dinner time. In the United States, you have a curfew and you can come home no later than 10. In Colombia, you after school, you're home after the next day you go to school. It's not that you have until this time to go back home and all those things. So the first thing, saludo, greeting. Hola, me llamo tal y hoy voy a hablar sobre la importancia de las reglas de la familia en mi comunidad de Ojedaville en Illinois, comparado con las reglas en la familia en un país como Colombia. Ok, entonces saludo, nombre, tema. First, start talking about your community, how this topic is related to your community, the community that you chose to talk about. Then talk about la comunidad hispana. Then give the example of the Hispanic community and then una conclusión. In that conclusion, give your opinion. What's your opinion about how these two things look different in each one of those communities? You can say something like, well, me gusta la idea de comer con la familia, pero también me gusta la idea de poder llegar más tarde a mi casa, to be able to get home a little later. Me gustaría combinarlas, ¿sí? Una conclusión. So follow this very simple format. You probably have seen other formats that are a little more full, but this one I really like. Okay, my friends. So thank you so much. I hope this wasn't too long or too boring. My name is Señor Ojeda. Follow me on Instagram because I know you have Instagram. Good luck on the exam. Next time, we're going to be talking about simulated conversation. Adios. Ciao.